Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It is a scorcher. It's already hot. There's all this stuff I wanted to do. I was going to chop up some wood. I got a chainsaw sharpening set. And after buying, probably 10 chains over the last 3 or 4 years, I decided to bite the bullet and figure out how to sharpen my own chainsaw. So I did, and I can't wait to test it out, but obviously it's been way too hot. Even in the mornings, it's hot. So I'll wait till the fall. I don't want to hurt myself. I'll wait till the fall. I've got probably 4 or 5 wood piles that need to be chopped up and stacked for firewood. I've got a lot of firewood, cords and cords of firewood, but I just need to clean up the place a little bit more. It's good. It keeps the snakes away. It keeps the mice and rats, all the little critters that use those as habitats. I mean, they can go use that as a habitat somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. But near the house, it creates issues and problems, doesn't it? So that's what's been going on with me at the homestead. It's been pretty dry. I forgot to tell you guys this, but when Eli and myself and his wife Jesse hiked down to the spring, or the little creek down there, we found a cold water spring right on my property. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. Eli was like, hey, that's a cold water spring. Obviously, it hasn't rained in weeks and weeks, and out of the side of a rock was trickling out this cold water. The problem is it's 185 yards back up to the top of the hill and 100-foot incline or elevation change. So now I have looked online, and there's actually different, people have looked at different ways to pump water like that up out of a spring. I don't know how much it costs, but it involves a cistern, like a plastic cistern, getting that down there, a pump and wiring and stuff like that. I don't even know if you could pump that water out from 185 yards at 100 degree incline or 100-foot incline. I don't know. But it was neat to see in an emergency situation. I could even build a little house down there, just a little shelter in case it all hit the fan. You can go down there and have water, wash your clothes, and hunt for food, because everything's attracted to water, right? So you'd be okay. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys. At some point, I may try to build like a spring. I don't know what they even call that, a spring pump? What do they call that when you basically build plumbing around a spring to get the water out? I saw a guy do it here on YouTube. It was pretty neat. And he put rocks in there, and there's what's called a clean out for bleach. You pour bleach in there to sanitize it at first, and it trickles down into like a plastic cistern, and then it pumps out up to the top of the hill. I was like, wow, that is really cool. Something I could almost do myself, but I wouldn't take the risk, because, plumbers are plumbers for a reason. Anyway, I thought I would share that with you guys. Some good news. There is this cold water spring on the property. Wow. Now, welcome back. Today is the final decode of the Star Trek reboot TV series called Strange New Worlds. And it's season 2. There's only 2 seasons so far. And today we're going to cover more programming themes. Themes that are deceiving everybody who watches this stuff. Every once in a while I got to remind people, because they get upset. Why are you as a Christian channel watching TV and decoding it? Well, you and I are awake, and most of us don't watch TV anymore for entertainment, but 95% of the rest of the world does. And so they're being tricked and deceived by this through subliminal programming, and they have no idea what they're watching, no idea what attitudes are being reinforced in their subconscious mind. They're not going to stop watching TV because we tell them to stop watching TV. They're going to stop watching TV when they see decodes like this, and they go, oh, we're being programmed. Or they'll watch the decodes and show other people the patterns so they can wake up. And this is just our ministry here. This is what we do. It's what we're good at. And this is how we're going to wake people up and show them that the people that run all of these studios and stuff are obsessed with the Bible and the Most High, because all of the themes running through all these TV series are biblical themes, aren't they? Now, today's theme is the nervous system. And the controllers are obsessed with our nervous systems. They want to hack it. They want to interface it with their technology. They're not quite sure how to do that yet, but in preparation for their final solution, other things have to happen. They have to begin to affect our nervous system with whatever it is they're giving us, medications, pokers, and all kinds of things to prepare the nervous system of humanity for what their next phase is going to be. And we're already starting to see people's nervous systems affected, aren't we? Now, their end goal is to offer health and everlasting life. This is their end goal. But what they're not going to tell you is that this world is passing away, which is what the Bible says. So even if you get an extended life, guess what? When this world's over, you're over. And this is what the Bible was talking about trying to find another way to ascend. Like a thief and a robber, trying to find another way into heaven. Let me check in with you guys, and we'll get into the last episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Good morning, everybody. Truth listener, I'm just me, you just be you. Mac TV. Ain't buying it, says there's new guidelines. Oh, wow. So we're just going to have to go deep, coding. We're going to have to go deep coding. And you guys help people out in the chat if they don't know what we're talking about when we say pokers and things like that. Let's take a look at this. Remember, this is all about finding a different way to ascend, like a thief and a robber. Watch.
How would she live?
It is her body that is ill, but her consciousness could join with me.
There must be another way.
There is. You could leave and she could stay. She would be free of sickness. She will never know death.
Daddy?
Your friend. She wants you to go with her.
Can you come too, Daddy?
Notice the crown, the corona on his head, and the dot in the pineal position. All this is encoding. Now, what's going on in this particular episode? Well, this guy is a doctor, and he's having some kind of hallucination of like a fairy tale because they are close to a nebula. Well, there's an entity inside the nebula that has decided that it is going to cure the doctor's daughter. This is the one he's holding here. The nebula is going to cure her incurable neurological condition. She has something wrong with her nervous system and her brain, and she's going to die. Now, this doctor actually stores his daughter inside the buffer of the transporter room. Literally, she's stored in the buffer, like as data. Why does he do this? Well, to extend her life. So he'll materialize her every so often to play with her and read her books, but then he puts her back in the buffer until they can find a cure. Well, they stumble upon this nebula, and the nebula decides it's going to offer the girl eternity by absorbing her consciousness as energy so that she can live forever. Now, keep watching because this is crazy. The nebula absorbs her as pink acrinodrome. Now, this is exactly what we saw in yesterday's show. There was a whole episode dedicated to a child being sacrificed and pink smoke coming out of these altars. For some reason, a lot of people did not see that video. Probably about half of you who normally watch the decode saw that. That was a very important decode because it proves what everyone's been saying, that these people are obsessed with pink acrinodrome.
I believe the Federation ship's part of a false flag operation.
Now, I wish I was making all this up, but the number of people who truly understand what these episodes are saying is truly a remnant. We are a remnant. It's pretty much us and like a few other people. Not many other channels are deep diving into these episodes. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything. What I'm saying is it's sad. It's sad that they can literally operate in plain sight. and deliver their messaging, their subliminal messaging, and like 1% of the people who watch the episode actually know what they're talking about. It's sad, and it's also kind of concerning, because what kind of effect is this programming having on the 99% who don't understand even what they're watching? That is the question. And that's why this work is so important. Let's keep watching here. Because here they start talking about, this is a different episode. Spock mentioned false flags, as you just heard. Now, these were terms that were never mentioned in cinema before people started waking up to them. Probably about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't hear the term false flag mentioned in a TV episode.
I think the extremists intend to use the ship to attack the Klingons as a way of reigniting hostilities with the Federation. I surmise that is likely its precise intention. I theorize that Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel were indeed taken by the extremists, and were able to reconfigure the transponder to give us warning.
So, false flag operation. Now, in a separate episode, we get gender fluidity programming. And what they like to do with this is dovetail it in with racial bias, and the issue with racial bias. They want to connect these two issues as one issue: race and sexuality.
I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing this for me. And for all the Illyrians who can't or just won't pretend to not be who they really are. I'll tell opposing counsel that deal is rejected.
Thank you.
Don't.
For failure to disclose her genetic modification status, we are charging Una Chin Riley with knowingly submitting false information to Starfleet.
Now, what is this about? Well, they want universal acceptance of gender fluidity. They want people not only treated equally, but also attitudes change to where it's just everything's okay, you know? And like no one gives it a second thought. And so what they've done is they've piggybacked this issue with racial discrimination. And this has always bothered me because the two issues have nothing to do with each other. Gender fluidity and race have nothing to do with each other. Now, there is a history and there is a truth, and it is a sad truth. And I was looking up springs and how I opened the show today. I was like, I wonder if there's a map of all the springs in the area. I found out that Cotter Springs is actually, which is just a few miles from my house, actually has one of the largest springs in Arkansas. It's literally bursting out of the earth. And I thought, what a beautiful place. What a beautiful place. And I looked at pictures of Cotter Springs, and there's a big rope swing there where people can swing off of ropes. And then I read the history of Cotter Springs. A history where black people actually helped build the railroad that goes through Cotter Springs. But then at some point, the governor of the state and some of the people in the town said that Cotter Springs was too black. And they ran the black people out of town, literally. And then they bragged about it, that their city was 100% white. Now, that's the truth about the history. And I had to stop myself cold in my tracks because anger started welling up inside of me. That as recently as the 1900s that this was happening, and as recently as the 1950s, they were bragging about it being 100% white. But then I realized that that was a different time. And the way I've been treated now is completely different than what a black man would have been treated like in the 1950s living in this area. And I had to rejoice in that and look at the positive of it. And the fact that I have not experienced racism despite the history that is here. And then I realized that maybe God has me as some kind of ambassador to bridge gaps. Because ultimately, what's this about? Ultimately, it's about forgiveness, isn't it? Ultimately, it's about not assuming. Ultimately, it's about people's salvation. Because people who harbor those feelings against someone because they're of a certain color, they're putting their salvation at risk because they're breaking one of the cardinal rules that Jesus told us, and that is to love your brother and love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't say what color. It says love your neighbor as yourself. So, another ministry, right? And I know sometimes people of my own color beat me up a bit and tell me that I'm living in a dreamland and that I don't understand and that racism is very real. But at the end of the day, it's all how I handle it, isn't it? And at the end of the day, love wins, doesn't it? And trying to assume the best in people instead of the worst in people wins, doesn't it? Because that's what Jesus would do. And so, yes, there is a truth about the history. But what burns me out is that they're trying to dovetail this gender issue with race issues. And the two are not the same. But they want us to believe it's the same. And it does the race thing a disadvantage, doesn't it? Now, what does the Bible say? Well, the Bible says that Jesus came for Jews and Gentiles, didn't he? All who believed in him. He commanded us to love one another, regardless of our race. What does the Bible say about gender fluidity? Well, it says that it is on a short list of things defined as an abomination. Now, along with that message of abomination to the Lord is also things like drunkenness, things that you would not think are on that list of things that God considers an abomination. But it actually is. Men who lie with men, drunkenness, and a few other things that you can read for yourself in the New Testament. And if we love him, we don't want to displease him, do we? Now let's move on to this next episode of Star Trek. Now, what's happening in this situation is that this woman right here is being prosecuted for being a genetically modified human. Which, in this case, I believe is metaphor for a gender fluid person. They say it's because she's genetically modified, but really it's probably about gender fluidity, right? Now, she's stripped of her rank, and she's threatened with jail time. As a court case ensues, the tribunal, this woman is her attorney, and she brings in the racial aspects to the case. And she compares that to this woman being prosecuted for being genetically modified. Because in Starfleet, genetic modification has become illegal. Now, the episode also suggests that this woman and her attorney were somehow intimate at one time. Let's take a look here.
We would like to petition the court to amend the charges against Lieutenant Commander Chin Riley, prohibiting Starfleet officers from engaging in permanent bioengineering, and 2 counts of sedition. If you had known Una Chin Riley was genetically modified, would you have sponsored her application to Starfleet Academy?
Now, so again, we have race combined with gender. And notice the irony here. The woman is being labeled as GMO as if it's some kind of a crime, right? When literally all of our food is GMO now, isn't it? And everybody seems to be okay with that. So I had to think a minute, like, okay, what's the programming here to the sleep people who watch these episodes? The programming here is that if you accept and side with this defendant here, being a GMO person, then subliminally you also side with accepting GMO food. And they frame the episode and the argument for you to feel sorry for this woman. Hey, just accept her. It doesn't matter if she's GMO. Just accept her. It's about her track record and her performance. It doesn't matter what she's made out of. So, that's the programming. And see, now you understand why it's important to decode these episodes. Otherwise, it slips right by people and they're like, oh, GMO person, GMO food. What's the big deal? There's no evidence that it hurts us, is what they'll say. Of course, that evidence has been swept away. They're only going to show you the evidence they want you to see. Right? Now, let's skip to the next episode. And basically, the crew goes down to this planet. And the planet has a frequency that wipes away people's memories. Now, this guy was a Starfleet officer that was left behind years and years ago on the planet by accident. and he becomes king of the planet. He uses the Starfleet technology to rule over the people that live there, and he exists inside this castle that is shielded from the electromagnetic frequencies that's wiping everyone's brain. Are you getting chills yet? As I know I am. Because people forgot how to taste and smell in their memories during the pandemic, didn't they? Erasing of the senses while 5G and beyond was passed. We all sat in our homes.
It is to think. First the ringing, lost time, fear, then finally the forgetting end.
So, basically the crew went down to the planet and their memories are wiped, and this is everything that's happening now. Cleaning the slate in preparation for the final interface is, I believe, what they're working on right now with everything they're doing with pokers. Now, we talked a little bit about all this on the Cult of Willow re-upload from a few days ago, didn't we? This is all about hacking the neural pathways. First, they have to reset them or wipe them clean in preparation for the interface. And it makes you wonder if that is what happened with the disease and cure.
Half an hour ago, she was fine.
Yeah, and now something's blocking her neural pathways. Could be viral, bacterial, environmental exposure.
Viral, bacterial, environmental exposure. But then they find out it's electromagnetic frequencies. Everything we said it was 3 years ago.
I've never seen anything like this. Synaptic degradation in frontal, parietal, and temporal lobes.
They've been conditioned. Maybe one day you fight, next day you forget why. There's only 2 guards now.
We could overtake them, but it doesn't look like anyone else wants to fight back.
No one wants to fight back. They've been conditioned not to. That's all of us.
What's causing this? Best guess, some kind of exotic radiation?
It started when we arrived here.
But the first symptom is tinnitus, followed by an intense migraine.
According to my calculations, it will be less than an hour before we are unable to cover all critical stations. We were not in orbit this long on our last visit. Logic suggests Roswell 7 is the source.
Now, we've also been talking a lot about how memories are tied to emotions. Remember those films we decoded? Where people, where all of humanity lost their memories, and the only way they could get them back was to remember an emotional moment? Well, whatever they're doing to us, they know that emotions are tied to memories. Watch.
We need to go.
I'm the pilot. Just trust me.
You know how to operate this?
I think so. It feels like mine.
Emotions are not...
I feel like I know how to do this.
You have your memories and we don't. How do I get them back? A machine? A chemical that takes them away. I need our memories!
It would be wise to avoid that.
No time. Gotta thread the needle.
Gotta thread the needle. Remember Trump said, when asked how he would get to heaven through the eye of the needle, he said he was working on he spent $200 million on camels. And we found out that the vector for camels was SARS, that SARS was the camels were the original vector for SARS in a study that we pulled up. And he said all this in the 2016 campaign. Thread the needle. I'm going to play that again.
Gotta thread the needle. Hang on.
And there is the 2 fangs. 1, 2. The 2 pokers.
As soon as we cleared the debris field, our memories came back. Turns out, those unknown elements Spock found in the asteroids were causing all the problems. He made up for it by devising a shield harmonic to protect us from the radiation.
Shield harmonic. That has to do with sound frequencies. That is what they're doing next to control people's minds. And that's it for Star Trek. Now, there were more episodes after this, but there was nothing of note. And so I ended it there, hoping to look forward to a season 3. There was a cliffhanger at the end of season 2, but that pretty much spells it out, doesn't it? We've got needles. We've got 5G frequencies. We've got memory loss. I mean, how much more do people need to see of this programming before they understand that it is exactly that, programming? So, yes, I know, Paul, I explained a little bit earlier that even though people don't watch TV here, the 99% of the other people in the world do. And so, therefore, this is a ministry to help them wake up. You know, it's not all about us and our salvation. It's also about all the other people. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing, leading people to the gospel through whatever gift God gave us, right? And so that's why we do these decodes. I know most of you don't watch TV anymore, but that is what I believe that God wants us to do for all the people that are still there. It's the same reason why Jesus had to go into town, right, and go talk to people. He didn't, I mean, he could have just said, hey, disciples, we're saved. Let's just go hang out in the garden and forget about these people. But we have to go and find the people where they're at. Jesus did go into temples, even though he never built one. He had to go into the temples because that's where everyone was. This is where he gave his ministry, didn't he? He went out among the people. He even went to a wedding where he turned water into wine. So, in our modern ministry, most people are watching media, aren't they? Entertainment. And this is so by decoding this stuff, it is a form of a ministry. Going to ministry of the bushes and the squirrels. Book of Nazism or whatever. Yes, he was in the streets. Absolutely. Unfortunately, there are very few people in the streets anymore. They're now on watching entertainment, which they didn't have back then, right? But I can imagine if they did, Jesus would be there as well. Lasers coming from the spaceship made it appear to be a flux capacitor. Possible. All right. Yes, there's a strong delusion, but I think everyone can agree. I mean, think about it. You're watching an episode of a TV show, and it goes right over your head. But then you stumble upon a decode in which you see patterns repeating over and over again. I think that would be enough to wake someone up and at least get them to scratch their head and go, wow, that's so weird that 2 days in a row there was pink acrinodrome. First, the boy was sacrificed at the altar of Pan or Bacchus under the pink incense, and then in a completely separate episode, a girl turns into pink acrinodrome as her consciousness is absorbed into the nebula. I think at that point, a lot of people that were asleep under a strong delusion might want to wake up and go, that is a little bit weird. Maybe I'll watch another decode. Maybe there'll be more to this pattern. And then they see another and another, and then they go, wow, everything that I thought was entertainment is actually real. It's actually what these people are doing in plain sight. And they have the gall to actually depict it on TV so that people can watch it and accept it at some point in the future of the history. So, those are my thoughts on that. All right, you guys. Well, I guess I'm going to go and let you guys go. I'll be back on Sunday. Sunday, we're going to be covering some crazy headlines. Exploding watermelons. Never heard of that before, but apparently it's a thing in this different kind of sun we're under. The sun is more intense. We now have heat indexes and things like this that didn't exist 30 years ago. Exploding watermelons, all kinds of crazy stuff. So we'll be back on Sunday morning about 9 a.m. Central Time. I'll see you guys then. Much love. Have a great weekend, you guys. Take care and be safe.